Unit 3 is actually what this should say because we did Unit 2 along with Unit 1 last time. So we are moving right through. As far as our list of content expectations go, this is what we're hitting. And a couple of you asked, hey, we did a lot with indigenous peoples and we did a lot with European explorers in those early units. What about Africa? Because that's kind of an important part of the American story. And we get into that a lot more in this unit because we wanted to keep a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about contained together so that kids get the whole picture of how people came from, how people were brought from West Africa to the New World, quote unquote, and the ramifications of that and how that works. So all of those standards end up getting addressed in this unit. This looks like a really lengthy list of standards, but it all tells a story and it all goes together very, very nicely. We have some recommendations of some literacy resources here, some different things that you can bring in. Roanoke, The Lost Colony by Jane Yolen. This is not required, and we don't like pull it out in the units, but that is if you're looking for some of those connections back to literacy time. We try to in the literacy resources pieces here, we try to bring some of those in to you. And then the primary question that we're concerned with in this unit is to what extent does geography determine destiny? And this is kind of an important question. We use this question in a lot of grade levels for a lot of different purposes. We use it in the ancient world history class to talk about where settlements first begin throughout ancient history. And then we use it all over the rest of the courses as well, just to kind of show you and try to lead kids towards this idea that where you live does have an impact on how you live. Phil likes to talk about how you sort of build houses and things like that out of the materials that you have nearby. So if you're in the middle of a desert, you're not going to be building all of your houses out of trees. You're probably going to be building it out of mud and brick and stone and things like that. So this idea of to what extent does geography determine destiny is explored in a whole lot of grade levels through a whole lot of ways. And that's one of the things I really like about compelling questions in inquiry-based instruction is when you hit on one like this that can be transferred into so many different classrooms, by the time a kid graduates, they're going to have a really, really, really clear picture, ideally, of the different ways that geography impacts our everyday life. So to what extent does geography determine destiny is our primary question. And then, as always, we have 3 supporting questions. I'm in the wrong unit because I have too many windows open. There we go. So in lesson 1, the supporting question that we're going to be looking at is what conditions and connections determine the fate of a settlement? So that is, again, sending us back to the idea of conditions and connections that we talked about and we established with the where do we put our presentation last time. The second supporting question is how did triangular trade impact the cultural, economic, and political development of Africa and the colonies? And we're actually going to move your cheese a little bit tonight with the idea of triangular trade, because that is one of Phil's biggest pet peeves, and for good reason, as you will see tonight. However, it is also listed in our standards document as triangular trade, which means M-STEP, there could be a question where the answer is triangular trade. So we do you a square in this unit by teaching you both triangular trade and then what it actually looks like. So we will spend a little bit of time talking about that and unpacking that for you guys tonight. And then the third and final lesson in Unit 3 is all about how and why did colonial regions develop differently. This is a supporting question that is incredibly important for when your 5th graders become 8th graders. The entire story of the 8th grade US history class is really this long stomp from, the establishment of the United States to the Civil War. And there's this whole, one of the M-STEP questions that I hate that pops up a lot, from teachers who do not look over their kids' shoulders while they're taking the M-STEP because we don't do that, is an 8th grade question like, who invented the cotton gin? And it's a list of 4 names. And of course, Eli Whitney is the correct answer. The problem with that question is I don't care who invented the cotton gin. I'm more interested that kids play around with this idea that the cotton gin transformed the economy of the South, and it also impacted the direction that the economy of the North took. So this question here in fifth grade, under a compelling question of does geography determine destiny, the supporting question of how and why did colonial regions develop differently, this is really, really, really important, not just to the story of fifth grade, but to the story that is told throughout the whole year in eighth grade. So as far as unit 3 goes, it is 3 major lessons. And if you remember the rule of thumb on how long should this unit take me, if I go back to my pacing view, you can see that I've got this one slated at about 6 weeks, which means with 3 different lessons, if you divide 6 by 3, you end up with 2. So you're going to spend about 2 weeks in each of these lessons, give or take, going through. So as far as the overview goes, that is it for me, and I am right on time, which means the first thing that we are going to talk about tonight is actually a thing that Phil and I both love and we hate at the same time. We love the Colonies game because the Colonies game ends up being really, really, really cool when when you attempt to do any part of it. But we hate the Colonies game because we tried to make it as wide-ranging as we possibly could. And in doing so, what we ended up creating was a really good framework that is missing some pieces, and it's missing some of those pieces intentionally. So what he and I decided to do this year, since the Colonies game gets launched in Unit 3 officially, we decided during this rollout, we were going to do a brief, about 20-minute overview of the Colonies game itself. And then we were going to basically let you know that we are looking for feedback as we go. So, as you start to do parts of this, we want to know what's working well and what isn't working well. So for that, I'm going to share a different screen, different